The 18th century served as the peak time for development in cities. Chicago, being one of these cities, decided to transform industrialization, assemble large buildings, and do much more. Population had gone up tremendously, the consumer economy thrived, and the meatpacking industry had become a success. However, as soon as immigration hit, the perfect city became overpopulated and was put into a state of poverty. With slums lining up the streets, children wearing rags, a lack of clean water, rudimentary plumbing systems, and other prominent issues, Chicago realized that they needed to turn to social welfare. In the year of 1889, Ellen Gates Starr, an American social reformer, paired up with Jane Addams, a friend from college. Together, they co-founded the Hull House, one of the first social settlements in North America. This was an abandoned mansion built by Charles Hull in 1856. It all started when Jane was born on September 6, 1860, in Cedarville, Illinois. She lived a privileged life, with her father being Illinois State Senator and important businessman. He was looked upon as high in society, with widely recognized friends such as President Abraham Lincoln. In the 1880s, Addams always had a negative self-image because she was diagnosed with tuberculosis only as a child. An adept reader, she was one of the only women at that time to graduate from a college. She was valedictorian at Rockford's College for Girls, where she studied medicine and met Ellen Gates Starr. She and Ellen took a trip to Europe and found a pioneer settlement called Toynbee Hall. Their view of the structure and slums dotting areas in Europe motivated them to co-found the Hull House. To begin making changes, they received deeds and land rights from the owner of the building, Helen Culver. According to a book written by Addams called 20 Years at Hull House, the house had passed through many changes since it had been built in 1856 for the homestead of one of Chicago's pioneer citizens, Mr. Charles J. Hull. Before it had been occupied by the factory, it sheltered a second-hand furniture store, and at one time the Little Sisters of the Poor had used it for a home for the aged. It had a bad reputation for a haunted attic, so the tenants living on the second floor always kept a large pitcher full of water on the attic stairs.
Jane Addams' political awakening had to do with this really important topic in the early 20th century, which was child labor. In this idea of kind of civic housekeeping and outreach to the poor immigrant workers of Chicago, this very upper-class, well-educated woman, I think, started sometimes without a full realization of what was the grinding daily reality of the very poor people who she was trying to sort of pull up and bring into the modern North American sort of vision of progress that she and people like her had. So one thing that was really interesting, one time she had young factory workers, and she was talking to them perhaps about issues of learning English or keeping clean houses or whatever other kinds of things she was trying to do in this mission of social betterment. And she passed around little bowls of candy for people to eat. And she was at first surprised when she saw little children recoiling with horror and disgust at the sight of candy, very much the opposite of what anyone would expect. And that's what led her to realize that those very children were sort of toiling away probably for like 16 hours a day and in horrible conditions in the very factories where those candies were made. And so whatever it was she might have been originally trying to teach people about, she started to understand that the dire exploitation of factory workers and the horrendous employment of children, as young as 9, 10, or 11, was a really important issue that she would have to sort of tackle.
By 1907, the Hull House had developed into a monumental 13-building structure offering classes on Shakespeare, music concerts, and the fine arts. The new buildings offered numerous classes and clubs for children and adults. They also included several areas of interest, including a gymnasium, theater, music school, art gallery, pool, nursery, library, kitchen, and a post office. In the first 20 years of development of the Hull House, a countless amount of people were drawn into reforming the social, educational, and artistic programs. With the help of a few other women, Addams and Starr established Chicago's first public playground, explored any working problems, and much more. They also contributed to the formation of America's first psychopathic clinic and juvenile court. Later, child labor laws were passed along with mandatory education, health provisions, and protection of immigrants, women, and children. As well as all these social clubs, Addams raised money, received help from other women, nursed people who were sick, took care of kids, and gave accommodation to around 2,000 people a week. Hull House immediately had open college extension classes and a summer school at Rockford. 100 women gathered for 6 weeks each for 10 years. They did homework together, went on boat rides, did bird study and botany, and much more to take advantage of the college life. With all the evening classes at Hull House, every Thursday a public lecture was expected at Bowen Hall. It wasn't long before Hull House became one of the earliest university extension centers. Another major aspect of the early days at Hull House was the social clubs full of young American kids. Addams actually wrote in her novel about a time where a young leader read a translation of Antigone. One boy did the whole play by memory, and soon the men decided that there were too many people in the club that they decided to create the Hull House Men's Club rather than the Females Club. Seeing Toynbee Hall had a great impact on Addams' decision to make a mark in the Progressive era. However, Addams, being extremely religious, was also influenced dramatically by the social Christian movement. The social Christians had philosophies that explained Christians needed to be more involved with the world around them. This faith caused Addams to make a difference to the community. She aimed for a world of tranquility, opportunity, and excellence.
So, Jane Addams was really one of the most important women in the late 19th and early 20th century United States, in my opinion. She was a major founder in the settlement house movement in the United States with the creation of Hull House. This is something she had actually traveled to England as a young girl and had discovered the settlement house movement there, and she brought this concept back with her to Chicago. And Hull House really offered all sorts of opportunities for women, children, families in the Chicago area. English classes, cooking classes, civics lessons. And they also did research. They did research into poverty and working conditions, and so they were really important and played an important social role. Later, and especially during the World War I period, Jane Addams became a major leader in the movement for peace and world peace. She again became internationally involved with the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, that she helped to start and was one of its founding members. She was really influential in promoting peace in a period of total warfare, so she was a really remarkable woman, I think.
After founding Hull House, Addams' reputation grew, leading to more civic responsibility. She had numerous other roles in her future. She became part of Chicago's Board of Education, Chicago's School of Civics and Philanthropy, president of National Conference of Charities and Corrections, and chair of the Women's Peace Party during World War I. She wrote several books on the Hull House and social activities, giving her the Nobel Prize in 1931. Unfortunately, she passed away on December 10, 1931, the day she was supposed to receive this prize due to bad health. Addams' actions were always put toward the welfare of others. She will be an instrumental and remarkable leader who revolutionized an era.